What happens when a former royal walks into a studio expecting a friendly interview, only to find herself ambushed on national television? Tonight, we're breaking down the explosive confrontation between Meghan Markle and one of TV's most controversial voices, Bill Maher. What started as a simple appearance on Real Time spiraled into a verbal war so intense, security had to step in. This wasn't an interview. It was a cross-examination. Make sure to subscribe and drop your thoughts below, because what you're about to witness has more twists than a courtroom drama. The lights were harsh that night. The energy in the room, electric. Meghan Markle stepped onto the set of Real Time with Bill Maher, expecting to discuss her newest charitable initiative. She anticipated polite questions about philanthropy, mental health, life in California. What she got was something else entirely. Bill Maher opened with a smirk sharp enough to cut glass. "So Meghan," he said, almost casually, "you've been pretty vocal about privacy lately." Which is interesting coming from someone who gives an interview every other week. Help me understand the logic there. Meghan's smile tightened. Her media training kicked in. "There's a difference," she replied evenly, "between choosing to speak your truth and having your privacy invaded by tabloids that profit from lies." Maher pounced. "Your truth?" he repeated. "That's an interesting phrase. Is there more than one truth now? I always thought truth was just truth." The audience chuckled. The air shifted. The temperature dropped. Meghan stayed calm barely. "People have different perspectives, Bill. Especially when they've lived through what I have." But Maher leaned in, his tone colder now. "Sure. But perspective isn't the same as fact. Like, if I say you were born in Los Angeles, that's true, regardless of how anyone feels about it. So when you and Harry sat down with Oprah and made some pretty serious allegations, were those truths or just perspectives?" The question hit like a sledgehammer. They were our lived experiences. Meghan answered carefully. Things that happened behind closed doors. But Maher wasn't letting go. "Right, but experiences are subjective. If I say I had a bad day and call my boss racist, that's my experience. Doesn't mean it's true. Right?" The implication stunned Meghan. Her media polish started to crack. "I think you're trivializing something much more serious than a bad day at work." Maher didn't flinch. "Or maybe I'm just asking for evidence. You made accusations that shook a nation and damaged reputations. Don't you think that comes with a responsibility to back them up?" Now Meghan's voice rose. "And what kind of proof would satisfy you, Bill? Should I have recorded private conversations with family?" Maher shrugged. "That would be something. Right now we've got a she said situation. One side is gagged by protocol. The other side's cashing Netflix checks." The room fell silent. "So you think I made it up for money?" Meghan asked, voice tight with restrained fury. "I think people have made up a lot more, for a lot less," Maher replied, not missing a beat. Then Meghan dropped the gloves. "This is exactly the kind of questioning that women, especially women of color, face when they speak up. You want documentation for racism. You want it to look like a crime scene." Maher scoffed, muttering under his breath, "Oh, here we go." But the mic caught it. Meghan's head snapped around. "Excuse me." Maher leaned back, now openly confrontational. "Please, go ahead. Continue the lecture about how asking for evidence is racist." It hit like a slap. Meghan's composure cracked for good. "Are you seriously mocking the idea that questioning a woman of color's experience might have racial undertones?" "I'm saying the race card gets old." Maher shot back. "You married into the most privileged family on the planet. You lived in palaces, had a taxpayer-funded royal wedding, and now you want to play the victim because someone told you to wear pantyhose." The studio gasped. Every line had just been crossed. Meghan stood. Her chair rolled backward with a screech. "How dare you minimize what I went through? You don't know what it's like to be isolated, to have your passport taken, to be told you can't seek help when you're drowning." Bill cocked his head. "Your passport was taken? By who?" "The Royal Passport Police." And let me get this straight. You couldn't ask for mental health support, but you could plan a Hollywood exit strategy with agents and Oprah Winfrey. You're twisting everything. Meghan snapped, her voice shaking. I'm not twisting a thing, Bill said calmly. I'm just pointing out the inconsistencies no one else has the guts to say out loud. What happened next never aired. Reports say Meghan stormed off set. Security had to intervene. The segment was pulled from broadcast, but the damage done. The interview that was supposed to be about charity became a televised trial, where Meghan Markle found herself, both defendant and witness, under a spotlight she never saw coming. Bill Maher leaned back in his chair, completely unfazed by Meghan's growing distress. Look, he said with a smug calmness. I get it. Nobody likes to have their story questioned. But when you go on the biggest interview in the world and imply that the British royal family is racist, maybe expect a few follow-ups. Meghan blinked in disbelief. Follow-up questions? Her voice rose with incredulity. This isn't journalism, Bill. It's harassment. You're not asking questions. You're making accusations. You're trying to discredit my experience. Bill shot back without flinching. I'm trying to understand how someone who says they were controlled and silenced managed to secure the $100 million Netflix deal before leaving the royal family. Were you allowed to make your own decisions or weren't you? Meghan's hands flew up in frustration. That's not how it worked, and you know it. Those negotiations happened after we decided to leave. After we were cut off financially. Bill laughed, actually laughed. Cut off, he repeated, mocking the phrase. Your father-in-law gave you millions from his private estate. That's not being cut off. I've been cut off. That's when your cards get declined and you're eating ramen noodles, not buying a $14 million estate in Montecito. The audience was frozen now. No applause. No laughter. Just discomfort hanging in the air like smoke. Even Bill's regular fans looked uneasy. You're being deliberately obtuse, Meghan snapped. Being financially cut off by the institution that was supposed to support us while we fulfilled royal duties is not the same as personal hardship. Bill tilted his head, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Oh, I forgot. Your struggles are more important than everyone else's because you used to be a princess. He didn't stop there. During this supposed oppression, were you still getting your hair and makeup done by professionals? Still wearing designer gowns that cost more than most people make in a year? Meghan's patience shattered. That's not the point. That's exactly the point. Bill exploded, his own composure cracking now. You want to be a victim, but still keep the perks. You can't be both oppressed and privileged, Meghan. Pick a lane. Meghan fired back immediately. I never said I wasn't privileged, but privilege doesn't shield you from racism, or mental health struggles, or being isolated from your support system. Bill scoffed. Support system. You had a staff of dozens, protection officers, personal assistants, stylists, everything. What you didn't have were people telling you exactly what you wanted to hear. The Meghan's voice shook now, with rage. You have no idea what you're talking about. You weren't there. You didn't live it. You're right, Bill replied. I wasn't. But neither was Oprah, and that didn't stop her from becoming your confessor. Neither was Gayle King, but she became your mouthpiece, and the Netflix producers. They were more than happy to amplify your story. Funny how the only people you trust are the ones who agree with you. The line landed hard. Meghan's face flushed. The audience sensed it. So now I'm being criticized for having friends who supported me during the most painful time in my life. No, Bill said, coldly. I'm criticizing you for calling it journalism when it's clearly therapy. If you want to work through your family issues, get a therapist. Don't go on international television and destabilize a 1,000-year-old institution because you were upset about seating arrangements at a wedding. Meghan froze. Seating arrangements. She repeated, her voice cracking. You think this was about seating arrangements? She stood up. Her voice trembled, but now it carried real weight. They questioned whether my children would be too dark-skinned to be accepted as legitimate heirs. They speculated about my unborn baby's skin color, Bill. And you're reducing that to seating arrangements. The room went still. The silence wasn't awkward. It was radioactive. And just like that, the interview had stopped being entertainment. It became a reckoning. Bill leaned forward now, eyes locked on Meghan with calculated intensity. Who said it? He demanded. Give me a name. Just one. Who looked you in the eye and said those things? Meghan's jaw tightened. I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus. Bill sat back, smug. How convenient. You'll make the accusation on global television. But when it comes to something that could actually be verified, suddenly it's all shadows and impressions. That's not how serious allegations work, Meghan snapped. This is unbelievable. She began unclipping her microphone pack. I came here to talk about my charitable work, and instead I'm being put on trial for daring to speak about my own experiences. Nobody's putting you on trial, Bill said, his voice rising with hers. I'm asking basic questions about claims you made. If you can't handle questions about statements you made on international TV, maybe don't make them. Basic questions. Meghan was on her feet now. Her calm was gone. You're calling me a liar. You're implying I invented racism for profit. That's not journalism. That's an attack. Bill stood too. I'm saying your story has holes, Meghan. Big ones. And instead of addressing them, you hide behind accusations of racism and sexism. And frankly, that's insulting. To people who actually live through those things. Meghan's voice cracked with disbelief. I didn't experience racism. Her voice grew louder, sharper. You mean me? The woman the British press called straight outta Compton. The woman whose unborn child was compared to a chimpanzee by radio hosts. Bill nodded, conceding without warmth. The tabloids were brutal. No argument there. But they were also brutal to Kate Middleton, to Camilla Parker Bowles, to Sarah Ferguson, to Deanna Spencer. It's not personal, Meghan. It's the price of being royal. Don't you dare compare what I went through to them. Meghan spat, voice trembling. None of them had their race questioned. None of them had their nationality used against them like a weapon. Bill didn't flinch. No, they just had their weight mocked, their parents ridiculed, their private lives ripped apart for decades. But your pain, yours, is different. Because it involves race. He paused, then delivered the line like a blade. News flash: the British press is awful to everyone. It's not racism. It's classism, misogyny, and sadism all rolled into one. You're not special. The words dropped like a bomb. The audience froze. Some glanced nervously at each other. Others leaned in, waiting for the next detonation. Meghan's face flickered, shock, hurt, then fury. She took a breath, then turned for the exit. You know what, Bill? This conversation is over. I don't have to sit here and let you minimize my experiences just because you think you know better. Running away when the questions get tough. Bill called after her. How very royal of you. Meghan stopped mid-stride. Slowly, she turned around. Her eyes were lit with something cold and dangerous. The temperature in the room dropped. The silence was no longer passive. It was tense, anticipatory. She walked back toward his desk, heels striking the floor like punctuation. Her voice, when it came, was quiet, but lethal. What did you just say to me? Bill hesitated, but pride wouldn't let him retreat. I said running away is very royal of you. It's what your husband did his whole life, until he met you. Meghan's voice dropped to a whisper. Leave Harry out of this. This is between you and me? Is it though? Bill said, settling back into his chair like a man who thought he'd won. Because from where I sit, this whole victim narrative feels like PR. A rehabilitation campaign for a man who never wanted the crown, until he had someone telling him to burn the whole thing down. Meghan clenched her fists at her sides, her control visibly fraying. You know nothing about my husband, or our relationship. Bill smiled thinly. I know he went from being Britain's golden boy to living in exile in California, making podcasts no one listens to, The final blow landed. The audience wasn't cheering. They weren't laughing. They were stunned. Meghan stood in silence. And then, without another word, she turned and walked off the stage. This wasn't just a bad interview. It was an eruption. Bill didn't blink. He fired back, cold and sharp. I know who he was. He went from war hero to professional complainer. That's quite the transformation. Stop it. Meghan's voice cracked through the tension. A warning. But Bill ignored it. What happened, Meghan? Did you promise him he could have it all? The royal title, the Hollywood fortune, the moral high ground. He leaned in. Turns out you can't have it all, can you? You're not royal anymore. Your Hollywood projects are flopping, and the only way you stay relevant is by rehashing the same grievances again and again. I said. Stop. Meghan shouted, her composure finally in flames. Bill smirked. Or what? You'll give another interview about how mean I was to you. Write another children's book about how misunderstood you are. Or maybe another Netflix documentary on how life in a palace was just too hard. Meghan snapped. You are a bitter, miserable man. She spat, voice shaking with fury. You get off tearing down women, mocking people's pain, and hiding behind your desk like it gives you moral authority. Bill's smile vanished. At least I'm honest about what I do, he said darkly. I don't pretend to be saving the world while cashing streaming checks. I don't cry about privacy and then sell my personal life to Netflix. You want honesty? He leaned forward. You're a washed-up comedian. Meghan fired back. You peaked 20 years ago, and now you get headlines by being cruel. You don't entertain, you agitate. You don't challenge power, you punch down, because you can't get laughs anymore. The audience gasped. Bill's face darkened. Lady, I've been doing this since before you were pretending to act on a cable show no one watched. Don't lecture me on relevance when your only claim to fame is marrying well, and then whining about it. Meghan stared at him in disbelief. Marrying well, she repeated. I had a career. I was financially independent. I built a life before Harry. I earned my place. Bill scoffed. You were a supporting character on a basic cable drama that got cancelled. Let's not rewrite history and pretend you were Meryl Streep. At least I was working, Meghan snapped. At least I was building something real, unlike you, who just tears other people down for ratings. Bill barked out a laugh. You call what you're doing now work. $1 million deals to talk about your feelings. Writing picture books about benches. That's work. I use my platform to help people, Meghan said. No, you use it to help yourself, Bill replied. Every project, every interview, every speech, it's about you, your pain, your story, your truth. When was the last time you did anything that wasn't about promoting Meghan Markle? Meghan's voice was ice. I don't have to justify my charitable work to you. Bill smirked. Charitable work. Is that what we're calling it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks a lot like monetized grievance. A personal trauma to profit pipeline. That was it. Meghan ripped off her mic and tossed it onto his desk. I'm done. This isn't journalism. It's harassment. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Bill called after her. Or wait, maybe you'll blame that on racism too. Meghan spun around one last time, her face flushed, her voice trembling. You want to know what your problem is? Bill, you've been cynical for so long, you don't recognize real pain anymore. You think anyone who tries to make the world better is just faking it for a check. You've forgotten what it means to believe in something bigger than yourself. Bill stood now, matching her energy. And you know what your problem is. You think your trauma makes you special. That pain gives you license to rewrite history and attack people who can't respond. Meghan stepped closer. They can respond. They have the entire British press behind them. Centuries of tradition shielding them from accountability. Bill snapped back. And you have Oprah. Netflix. Every progressive outlet in America parroting your every word. Don't act like David when you've got a better PR team than Goliath. At that moment, producers began stepping in. Stagehands moved nervously. Security edged toward the set. "This interview is over," one of the producers said sharply. Finally, Meghan muttered, grabbing her bag and turning toward the exit. Bill couldn't resist one final shot. Typical. "Leave when the conversation gets real." She stopped. "One last time. Bill, I'm leaving because you never wanted a real conversation. You brought me here for a public execution, and I'm not giving you the satisfaction. I brought you here to ask questions," Bill countered. "If you can't handle questions about your public statements, maybe don't make them." Meghan laughed bitterly. "Those weren't questions. You spent 20 minutes attacking my character, my marriage, my career. That's not journalism. That's a hit job. If the shoe fits." Bill shrugged. Security didn't need to escort her. Meghan walked out with her head held high. But before she disappeared backstage, she turned back one final time. "You know what, Bill? I feel sorry for you. This is your legacy. Sitting behind a desk, tearing down people who are actually trying to help someone. Because deep down, you forgot what it feels like to care about anything that doesn't benefit you." And with that, Meghan Markle exited the set of Real Time with Bill Maher, leaving behind one of the most explosive, uncomfortable interviews in late-night history. So what do you think? Did Bill Maher ask hard questions, or cross the line into open hostility? Was this accountability or a takedown? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more celebrity confrontations, explosive walk-offs, and the moments that redefine reputations.